Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
These shows are brought to you in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. Well, Heidi, we have got a really interesting topic today on women in grief.
Yes, I'm excited about this. And figuring out what's unique about women in grief, the do's and don'ts that happen when women are grieving, how we can help and support women.
Mm-hmm. And we've got some really fabulous women on that have done some great things, and we'll be talking about the things that they're involved in a bit.
Mm-hmm. And I will introduce them all. They're friends of mine, and I'm so glad to have them all here today. And we will start with Ann Castaldo. Ann is Tony's mom, and she is the founder of the Tony Brown Foundation, and she is also the committee chair for the National Conference for the Compassionate Friends this year, which is going to be in Scottsdale, Arizona, in July. Mm-hmm. Next to her, we have Chris Gigliotti. Chris is Adam's mother, and she is very involved in the grief community. She's very involved in Compassionate Friends. She does a lot of workshops and presentations and speaks all over the country about women in grief and parents' grief. Mm-hmm. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And then next to them, we have Brooke Smith, and she's been on our show before. And Brooke is Kennedy's mom, and she started a foundation called Not My Baby. She is the creator of that. Mm-hmm. So
and she had a stillbirth, and also what I think you are actually took action. These guys are involved a little bit with the Compassionate Friends, but you took action through First Candle and formed your own group in Brooklyn, which I think is great. And we got an award at First Candle.
We did the other night, and First Candle is an amazing organization that builds awareness for stillbirths and miscarriages and child loss.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
So we want to talk a little bit about women in grief today, but we want to kind of get a rundown on your children, how they died, and so that our audience gets a little feel of what's going on here. So do you want to talk a little bit about your son, Tony?
Tony was 24 when he passed away. He is the youngest of three boys, and he had come down with a rare blood disease about 6 months earlier. Something that was survivable and treatable. He was being treated for it and died after complications with a medical procedure. It was July of 2009. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Now, did you have other kids?
I have two other boys. They're older, so Tony was the youngest. And David, he's 35 now, and Dan, who's 33.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Tony was your baby?
He was my baby, yeah. And one of the interesting, real quick comments that was kind of made early on was, Tony being the baby, of course, got a lot more attention, than the other two, so they fought.
I'm the oldest. I know that the babies get more attention.
Of course,
and I'm the baby, and we know we do.
I think, right, there you go. So, but it was interesting that, they felt Tony got the attention while he was alive, and he also was getting it now that he was dead. Yeah. So that was something I had to work very hard on.
Really interesting.
Yeah, we'll bring some more of that up and some of the thoughts about that. I think that's a good thought there.
Hi. My son Adam died. He was 22 years old, and it was of a drug overdose. Mm-hmm. He was my oldest and my only son, and I have a surviving daughter, Sarah.
So your only boy?
Oh, my only boy.
Your only boy.
And that's a significant, my brother was the only boy. Mm-hmm. So they have those special roles.
Yeah.
They're special what?
The special roles in the family, being the only boy,
Yeah, the special roles, yeah. That have to get fulfilled, and that's an interesting part too. And
yes, Kennedy was stillborn. She's my husband and I's first child. Love her to pieces. And we also have a son who was born 2 days after her 1-year anniversary in heaven. Wow. She died to a true knot in her cord, undetected true knot that was also wrapped around her neck.
Tell us a little bit about your story, about that part.
About
how your son died.
Adam had been, out with his friends, and Adam didn't struggle with the drug problem that I knew of. Like I hear so many stories of people who have fought the battle and stuff. I honestly didn't have any idea Adam had done drugs. I mean, I knew he was, he was 22. He went out and partied a little bit, but I had no idea. And he went home with a friend and went to sleep on her couch, and just kind of like she didn't realize that he wasn't conscious. They thought he was just sleeping, and then I had, called and said, have you seen Adam? And then they called me back and said they couldn't get him to wake up. So.
Oh, jeez. Great.
And we hear those stories.
We do.
A lot. I mean, that's not, this is not just a one-off story.
No.
unfortunately, and having people not respond and take people to the hospital and do what they need to do. And your story, having we'll talk a little bit about the error that happened with him.
Yeah, Tony was in the hospital coming home, and after they treated him and kind of told us what we'd have to do for him to live with this disease that he had. And all of a sudden, for some reason, I had been in the hospital at the same time. I had emergency back surgery, and I told them to bring me up to his room while they were doing the procedure of taking a central line out. And right after they did it, he just looked at me. He's like, "Mom, I don't feel good. Something's wrong." And by the time we got nurses in there and doctors, and they're like, "Oh, well, he's just getting a cold," and they kind of dismissed all of this. And then by the time someone did pay attention to us, it was an emergency, and they wheeled him away and worked on him for hours, and he never did make it home.
And dealing with him, the way they put it in was wrong.
Yeah. We didn't find that out until much later when they did the autopsy and we were at the hospital, and the doctor had said to us, boy, this just looks like an air embolism. But that's just why. And he named off all the procedures that they do when they do this. And we were all in the room, and we're like, no one did any of that.
So they didn't get the air out of the tube.
Yeah, and so it was, I was grateful that I was there. My last words to my son were, "I love you." So I was really grateful that I got to say that to him. I know that is something that not everybody gets to do. So I am grateful for that. And it was, it's hard because you do hold on to a lot of anger and a lot of what ifs. And, maybe if I had known the procedure better, I could have known what was going on and stopped it or prevented it. So you hold on to that for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's
Now, how many years has it been for you?
6.5. It was July 2009.
It's pretty similar. It was March of 2009.
Okay, so around 6 years. Now, Brooke, tell us about what happened with you. I know that you had gone in and knew that didn't feel like there was something right with the baby.
Yes, we went in to the emergency and the labor and delivery about 3 times. And we felt that something wasn't wrong starting around 36 weeks. So I was very well into the end of my pregnancy. We went back one time. They said because, her heart rate looked well, they called her lazy. They made comments saying, "Oh, your children will make liars out of you." A lot of very insensitive stuff that just felt dismissive.
So they dismissed how you were feeling.
Yes.
And to call your baby lazy is strange to me.
I mean, to me, it just confirms exactly what I was saying. If I come there for a decreased fetal movement and you're saying the baby looks lazy, but I guess because her heart rate presented well, they didn't feel the need to look any further.
Okay.
So I went back a second time. I did have contractions that time, but again, they didn't feel the need to look any further. And I kind of fought to get another appointment for a non-stress test and a biophysical profile. And they debated with me about the weeks. I was 40 weeks at the time, and I was told they don't do it until 41. And then I had to explain that, I had just been there. It's kind of have a short window to find out what's going on. So I dismissed them, and I just came back again within 6 days of my last visit. But unfortunately, it was too late, and there was no heartbeat. That's what we're told. There's no heartbeat. So I'm very unsatisfied with how they monitor umbilical cords. I wasn't aware that they really don't look into them too much, unless you're like high risk. But when you get your sonograms, sometimes the sonograms are not even mandatory in all stages. Some people just go, they get their stomachs measured, and they're really not looking for anything unless you present any signs of distress or bleeding and things of that nature. But my husband and I, we've learned a hard lesson. Low risk does not mean no risk.
So you're trying to help other folks.
Yes.
And I know you are too, Ann. Talk a little bit about the Tony Brown Foundation. What's your hope with that?
Oh, geez. It's big hopes. I mean, we do hope to help anyone grieving the loss of a child or loved one is our main goal. But I also am very strongly believe in educating the non-bereaved also. We had a neighboring tragedy in Sandy Hook, and we held a grief resource awareness day, and that came about because I worked in a public place, and I realized that not everybody knew what to do and how to act. And I mean, we all know that with our own family and friends, and we deal with that all the time, but the community as a whole just does not know how to deal with bereaved parents especially. And I do try at every step I get to, make other bereaved parents know that it's okay to talk about your child. Like, don't let society dictate to us that we can't. So I'm involved that way. I do workshops and presentations with Compassionate Friends. I'm very much involved with them. I run support groups, you know, so really just giving back.
And tell people where you live. You live.
I live in Monroe, Connecticut,
Yeah,
which
Monroe,
is about,
Connecticut.
I don't know, stone's throw from Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
But, you know, it is important that people know that they're not alone. And that there's other people that feel the way they do. And it's nice when, you know, I hate the fact that I have to know these people. You know, when people call me and say, Ann, you know, someone I know just lost a child, or someone I know, you know, can you help them? And that's just such a wonderful feeling to be able to give of yourself and make Tony's death not be in vain, you know, to be able to keep his name going.
Yeah. How
because
about
you're
you,
helping
Chris?
other
What are
people.
you up to with it?
Well, I've been, you know, I did a few workshops, and I said my thing is, I feel like you hear a lot of advice, and my problem, I guess, was I was like taking it literally and putting pressure on myself to grieve like everyone else, or, you know, I felt like, you know, everyone's saying you should want to shout your child's name from the rooftops, and when I didn't, then I'm like thinking, well, what's wrong with me? You know, it's all, I think that's that mother's guilt, even as a bereaved mom, you know, like you want to do it like everyone else, you want to be the best at it, and it really wasn't my personality, and it took me a long time to think that it's okay that I just do it in my own way. So.
I love that. And, you know, we interviewed Candy Lightner, who started Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We've interviewed her a few times and had her on television. We know her well. And one of the things that Candace said about starting organizations and doing all that, she says it's great, but make sure you do your personal grieving. Because she said, I didn't, because I was running around doing all this mad stuff. And when I got to grieving for myself, everybody had moved on. Because it was 3 years before we got it going. And that is a trouble when you've got, you know, some things going on.
And the other thing that Chris said that I really think is important out there for all the women that are watching this, just because we're women doesn't mean we all grieve the same.
Yes.
We have differences in our grief. And you know, a lot of people have butterflies when people die, and I've got my butterfly tattoo here. And it represents my brother, but one of the things I love about Chris is she does a workshop at Compassionate Friends called I Hate Butterflies. I love that. Voice is so important.
It is,
It's
it
so
is.
important because we judge ourselves, and we feel like other people are judging us if we don't grieve like everybody else.
Absolutely. Well, let's, you did a roll-in on women in grief and taking care. And let's watch that, and then let's...
and taking a break from our grief.
Yeah, taking a break
Because
from our
sometimes
grief,
women
yeah.
are so busy taking care of everybody else, they don't take care of themselves.
Yeah. So let's take a look at that roll-in.
When we went in to see the families that had had someone die in the World Trade Center, we gave them a homework assignment. And the assignment was that they had to have family fun time. They had to have it once a week, because we needed to give them permission to take a break from their grief. And taking care of ourselves is kind of giving ourselves permission to take a break from our grief, but the bottom line is we feel very, very guilty about taking a break from our grief. Because we feel like, look, if I really love this person, I should be grieving 24/7. I shouldn't be exercising. I shouldn't be sleeping well. I shouldn't be eating well. So yes, I'm here to tell you and to give all of you out there the assignment of taking a break and taking care of yourself, because there's a lot of people in the world that still need you. And if you have a health breakdown, you are not going to be good for any of those people. You're not going to be able to take care of them.
Well, Heidi, I love that video, and the reason I do, because I worked Heidi with families, with the 9/11 families, with Heidi on a Columbia University study, and one of the most brilliant things was family fun time. I mean, just giving people permission, going in and saying, okay, we want you to take 5 minutes, buy an ice cream cone, walk around the block. I mean, I don't know, Heidi, you can talk
I
about it
agree
more.
with you, and I think we do need permission. Like I said, like that video shows, because we feel guilty. It's like, okay, wait a minute. What are people going to think about me if I'm out enjoying myself and my brother died? You know, they're going to think that I didn't care about him, I didn't love him, I wasn't connected to him. And I know moms, you guys have all lost your children, and it feels like that sometimes. I'm sure you guys can weigh in on that.
Yeah, interestingly, Heidi, I'm kind of going to go against the grain here because I didn't feel guilty. I kind of, you know, got back into going out very quickly because that was our family's personality.
Yeah.
And Tony was full of life. Tony was just everything. And I struggled with it, and I did it. I remember people saying that, though, like, oh, look at her, she's not even grieving, she's went to the city. Or
Right.
you know, she's not, and it was like, that was how I grieved, was by honoring my son, by doing these things. So I felt guilty the opposite way, because I wasn't doing, like you said, like everybody says, oh, you can't go out, you can't do this, you can't. And here I was doing all these things, but I was grieving my son. And
I
nobody
love
thought
that you're
I
saying
was.
this. I love that you're saying this because this is what I'm always telling clients.
Yeah.
I said you're connecting with your child and your sibling when you're celebrating their lives.
Yeah.
Because all your kids were full of life, and even your
Right.
baby Kennedy. I mean, you had
Yes.
a relationship with her for 9 months. 9 months, okay, you had this relationship. All your kids were full of life. And so that's when we're connecting, when we are celebrating their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that, Ann.
Yeah. So you were able to get out. Yeah.
Oh, we actually put something in practice recently. Jackson, my son, his godfather had introduced like a virtual game night. So we started doing that with our groups as well. So now we do a virtual game night using a gaming system online, and we're able to play some games together. And we do that once a month as well.
And this is your group.
Yeah, this is our Not My Baby peer support group. So we were able to do that, and we also launched a campaign to help celebrate called hashtag Go Pink and Blue.
I saw
And,
that
yeah.
online. It's lovely.
Thank you so much. So it's been pretty successful. We're very happy about it. People have been able to change their, well, add an overlay to their profile pictures that's pink and blue. And we've had about maybe over 120,000 supporters and about 500,000 likes.
That's great.
So we're promoting people to celebrate and get out there and
You
do
know,
stuff.
I want to say I don't think a lot of people understand a lot about stillbirth, and the fact that I don't think we think about the fact that you delivered a full-term baby that had died. I mean, those are,
Even
and you
some
see the baby and
miscarriages.
hold it, and yeah.
Even some miscarriages,
Yeah,
because
are.
there's a lot of rules and stuff that I think a lot of people are not aware of. And even some miscarriages, some women still deliver their babies, and because they deliver them early, no medical intervention can be done. So some women have had their children die in their arms while their baby was still breathing. So there's a lot of stuff
Yeah,
that
a
people
lot.
don't know that really affect the
And
trauma
you're
of the
out-
situation.
out
Yeah.
doing that, yeah. So, but I think the other piece is, and you talked about it, we're talking about people who are advocates getting out and all that. Is it okay for me to stay home for a while?
Yeah, I guess.
It's personal, right?
It
Yes,
is
so
personal, and I
personal.
think that's what
Yeah.
it is. You know, you know, you have to go back to work. You know, so
Yeah.
it's like there are certain things that you have to do, and then there are certain things that you just don't feel like doing. And again, I think you just have to honor yourself and not feel guilty one way or the other. You know, I feel like that's really
How
important.
was going back to work? We haven't talked about that. Yeah, I remember my going back to work. Oh my gosh, going in the bathroom and crying, screaming in the car on the way to work, screaming in the car on the way home from work.
Yeah, I have
you know.
similar experiences. Getting there, you know, being there, it's hard. It's
Getting
hard
out of
to-
the shower,
Yeah.
matching your shoes.
I actually have a story of hiding in the closet, like at work, because
Yeah,
there's like all these
right.
people around, and you just have to
Yeah.
get away from it all. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard. It's a hard thing. It's hard to get back in there, and there's a lot of trivial things you find out once you get back to work that don't seem to matter anymore. And
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny, even with all of this stuff that we're doing, I haven't been able to face that yet. And I haven't gone back to work. So it's been 1.5 years since I lost Kennedy, and I'm not ready to deal with that. I used to work in the school system, and I've visited one time, and I was overwhelmed even by the children, you know, because they're so honest. So the type of questions
You
and
know,
stuff
I
that
worked
they
in a
ask.
hospital, and I was a psychiatric nursing consultant to the surgical service at the University of Rochester, and I had to leave. I worked there for a while, and I had to. I went back to school, and you know, I went back to school to get a PhD because I needed to do something that felt valid to me,
Yeah.
but I needed to drop out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can understand what you're saying. It can be difficult to go back to the same setting. Were you working at a
I was not. I had taken time off when Tony got very sick, and then unfortunately Jeff had gotten very sick right after Tony had died with heart conditions and things like that. So I was taking care of him, and then my dad had a stroke and came down with
wow.
cancer, and so I was kind of like the caregiver for good 2.5 years after Tony died. And then my dad had passed away, and I went back to work after that. But because I think my grief was kind of on hold because I was so busy with them, that when I did go back to work, it was kind of the same thing. It was like in the public eye, and it was really hard. I'd see people that come in and look like Tony's. And, you know,
yearning and searching, right?
oh my gosh,
You
you
have
know,
a
I
stiff
actually
neck.
stopped and walked up to this one kid at one point, and I'm like 10 feet behind him, and I'm like, what are you doing? You know, that's not your son. You can't go, you know, but it's these crazy thoughts that go through your head. And it's
Following people.
Grief is not always rational.
No,
For
it's
years and years and years, even sometimes now, I would run up to people that look like my brother,
Yeah.
honestly thinking they would turn around and it would be him.
right.
Because it's so unbelievable that
Yeah.
kids can die way before their time. It doesn't. It's hard to wrap our arms around the permanence of it, I think. It takes a really long time.
So what I would like to do is I'd like you guys to give our audience some tips and some advice on what's helped you and you know, well, how long does it take?
Oh gosh, I think it takes a lifetime, honestly. But the thing that helped me the most was following my gut. I mean, there were days, I mean, I know I said I got out there and I was busy and I, you know, went to the city, but there were days I sat on the couch. And there were days I took out pictures and just looked at them and cried. So I think whatever feels right to you at that moment in your time of grief is what you need to do. No matter what anybody says, if they are telling you, no, don't sit there, you shouldn't be crying, get up and go do something. If you need to sit there and cry, sit there and cry, but as time goes on, you're gonna know that you're gonna sit there and cry for less time. Like it won't be a full day, it may be 8 hours one day, or it might be 6 hours, and then it might just be an hour that you need to sit and cry. But do what you need to do. You need to take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, you know, spiritually, however you need to do it. Just follow your gut, you know, and do what's best.
Wow, Anne's answer is good. I don't know. For me, I didn't belong to a support group. I enjoy very much going to conferences, big groups where I didn't really participate. I kind of sat back and took it all in. I didn't really want to be the one sitting around sharing in the circle.
By the way, that's one nice thing about Compassionate Friends is you don't have to share. I love it when you go there. They say, and you don't have to speak.
That's right.
Yeah.
They go around and talk about, you know, how your child died and all that. I like that. If you don't want to talk, pass.
Yeah, and I
And
just
nobody
think,
cares.
Yeah, I think that was helpful to me, and I think just realizing that it was okay to not like butterflies, and I've still met some very good people, and I've heard some really good advice. But you just have to learn to weed through it and take what works for you and dismiss what doesn't.
I'd like to add to that friendships, like, you know,
Yeah,
the
I was
women in
about to
grief,
say.
the women in grief is huge.
Yeah.
And we give each other, I think, permission to laugh and cry and do that little roller coaster, even if it's in a matter of an hour of going through all those emotions. Well, we don't have to worry about what our husbands or our children or anybody else is thinking. You know, that friendship is really important.
I was going to say the same thing, finding a good support system, because a lot of people don't understand. We've become a part of a unique society, per se. So it's very important to find out, you know, who knows how to support you the way that you need to be supported, and just be gentle with yourself. You know, give yourself what you need, like what you said, you know, you need to be well. So, you know, figure out what it is that you need. It may be hard, you know, but figure out what, you know, what your barriers are, and figure out what you need to do to, you know, work towards, you know, getting over those hurdles, and do it at your pace. And it's okay.
Okay, so you just brought up something. Find people that can be supportive.
I
What
was just
about
thinking
our
that.
old friends that we haven't heard from?
It's terrible.
It's hard for them.
It really
hard
is.
for them.
I do have to say, though, this past Halloween, which is, you know, not that long ago, I got a phone call from a dear friend of mine who, for some reason, she gets it. And she said, Anne, I'm just thinking of you today. I want you to know, you know, I remember the Halloweens, and it was so great to hear that. And I don't think, you know, enough people understand. They're not going to make us sad, and they're not going to make us upset,
And they're
or
not going to remind you
us.
that your children died. You already know that.
Yeah, we live with that every
You
minute.
haven't forgotten.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so it was great that she reached out to me, and you know, I had called my mom and mentioned to her, and she's like, well, I don't understand what's so hard about Halloween.
Oh,
You know,
geez.
and
Yeah.
you know, but it's that difference. You know,
Yeah.
she didn't understand. I'm like, well, it's a holiday, and you know, I miss Tony. I see the
And
little
all those
kids.
little kids with their masks on,
Exactly.
that are coming to your door, could be anybody's children. They could be your children.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's the more we can educate the non-bereaved how important it is for us
Awareness.
to get that. Yeah.
Awareness is definitely
Yep.
important.
Yeah.
We put together little cards that are basically like a guide for family and friends.
Yeah.
And try to
Nice.
give people like do's and don'ts. And
Yep.
communication is the biggest thing. Because grief is so personal, you really need to speak to the parents or the families to find out what it is that they need, because it's not a cookie cutter situation.
Right.
I like that,
Exactly.
and I
That's
also
a good
like
point.
the idea of finding out what women need, because a lot of times the guys that I work with say, I don't know what she needs. I'm trying to brainstorm and solve something and fix something, and she's getting annoyed. And I'm like, she might just need you to sit and listen.
And stop trying to
Right.
fix it.
Or maybe she needs a cookie.
There you go.
Because sometimes we don't even know.
Exactly.
Well, that's a good
You
point.
know, and
Yep.
if we don't know, we just need your patience to let us figure it out.
There you go.
You know?
Yeah, oh, I think that's a good, very good point. You know, I think we also have to find safe people.
Yeah.
I call them safe people. There are people that can hear our story, and you know, there are people who are going to tell us their story. You know, you're going to say, my child died, and they say, well, this is what happened to my Aunt Jenny, and then they're going to go on with this story because it's hard for them to hear your story, and they want to be with you, but they really, you know, they can't hear your story, so they're bringing in all their thing. But are we going to forgive our friends that blew us off over the years?
Yeah.
That's what I find. Some of them come back in
Yes.
and rejoin
I
us.
also heard someone say, we've heard a couple people on our show say, don't look at all of your friends as grief support.
Yeah.
Some of them are there to distract you
Right.
Yes.
and play with you and not talk at all about your loved one.
Yep.
Some of them are there to support you. Some of them are there to do whatever.
Go to a
And
movie. Some
Yeah.
of them are there to go to the gym.
I didn't think about
Get
that
what you
because I
can
used
get.
to be annoyed if everybody wasn't there for grief support. I'm like,
Yeah.
how dare you be with me and not be grief support?
Right, exactly.
That's a really good point,
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you guys for being on the show today.
Oh,
It's,
thank you for
You're
having
great,
us.
and it's been wonderful, and you know, you're just awesome, and I think you just show an example that we will survive. And I know there are people that are watching this that do not think they're going to survive,
Yeah.
and and think they're going crazy.
Yeah.
And didn't we all feel at one
Yep.
time we were going crazy?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
But we're
So-
all more than conquerors.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So thank you again
Absolutely.
for being on. And we want to thank you for watching this show today. And I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host, Dr. Heidi Horsley. And we will always want to say, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.